Hey everybody, this is Eric Enge on the road again, doing another Hangout on Air. This time I am in San Francisco, the Hyatt Regency. I'm up about 11 floors. I wonder if you can see it. I don't know. You probably can't see out the window, can you? Very well.
Blazing sunlight.
Blazing sunlight. Okay, well.
So we know you're in California.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, I have a balcony outside my room, and it's really strange to me because I could actually literally climb over the edge and launch myself 11 floors down to the street.
Well, that might depend on how the show goes today, folks. So your questions are a matter of life and death for Eric Enge today.
There you go. Yes, you need to feed us some good questions. So, and of course, Dustin Stout is leading the way with. Oh gosh, it didn't even pop up. Did it pop up for you? How many socials?
If I can do it. I work for me. Yeah. How many social signals does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Okay. Thank you, Dustin, for that very thoughtful question.
I think we decided before the show the answer is 6, and we can move on to the next question, right?
Yes, we did. So
we have extensive testing behind that answer, but we don't have time to go into it.
No, that's right. It's way too much work. So, but we did have a serious question about HTTPS as a ranking factor, which Google just announced. And it's the interesting thing about that is that it shouldn't entirely be a surprise. Google has been advocating for HTTPS for a long time. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's secure HTTP protocol. So it's the secure version of HTTP. That's what I mean to say. And basically, it means that it's harder for third parties to get in there and actually get at your, at whatever the dialogue may be. Particularly important if personally identifiable information is being shared. But Google's taking a strong stand here and basically saying it doesn't matter to us, what the nature of the information on your site is. We just want you to make it secure no matter what, which is a very interesting thing. I mean, what do you think about this, Mark?
Well, this is putting teeth into something that was announced at Google I/O earlier this year, where Google talked about, they called it HTTPS everywhere. That's their campaign, and they are on a campaign to get all sites anywhere on the web to eventually implement HTTPS. So like I said, this is the first of them, maybe not putting some teeth to that, that would be more like a penalty, but putting a carrot out there for us. This ranking boost that they say they're going to establish now is very small to begin with. First of all, it's only going to affect, they said, about 1% of search queries. And it will be only a small boost compared to other ranking factors out there, but it's some little reward. They did say that they might, and I would guess that they probably will, crank that up gradually in the future. They want to give time now for more sites to implement this type of security. It's a little bit complicated to do, and they're also advising, at least John Mueller has been talking about, that this is not just something for e-commerce sites. We think about the importance of security for, if you have an e-commerce site, obviously people are dealing with credit cards and payments and all kinds of personal financial information. That should be a no-brainer these days, that should be a secure site. But now even John Mueller is saying that we'd like to see all sites, even if you're just a content site. Users are going to get trained to begin to look for that. They're going to feel safer. Even on a content site, the user may do some interactions, or you may have a login. You may collect their email address for something. So they're going to feel safer. They're going to start to know more and more. Even regular people are going to start to become aware that when they look up in the address bar and they see the HTTPS in their browser address bar, that means this is a secure site.
Yeah. So, and the interesting thing is, even though they said it's a small ranking factor now, that they plan to dial it up over time. So, as you mentioned, Mark, and given that that's the case, well, they're really prepared to put some real teeth behind it, I think. not urgent that you deal with this, but it's important, and it will become urgent if you wait too long. It's my quick take on it.
So
So,
Lila Martin here asks related, if we go over to HTTPS, we have to notify Google. To make sure I do that right, how do I notify Google? Do you have to notify Google?
I didn't think you had to do anything other than that Google will figure it out as they crawl your site.
Right. In fact, I just saw today on SEO Roundtable that John Mueller said yesterday that this is just part of the algorithm now. It's not an update. You don't have to wait for refreshes. It's there instantly. Once they find a page on your site, once they crawl a page and see that it's HTTPS, then it qualifies for this. And it is a URL by URL qualification. So if only part of your site is secure in this way, then those pages qualify for the boost, but not your whole site. Anyway, but it seems like it's automatic once you've implemented it.
Yeah. I have to, boy, my comment tracker is not working in terms of popping things up. So I just wanted to say thanks to David Harry for his "Don't do it, Eric" comment in response to the jumping off the balcony. David, I appreciate that sincerely.
Looks like I'm getting updates, so I'll try to keep track of it.
Yeah, no, I'm getting the updates. I just can't push them live. So
Okay.
gotta love the quirkiness of this environment here.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Alfred Tugolo about what type of company can benefit from content marketing. And that's at 1302 in there if you want to find that and plop that up. But there you go.
There it is. Alfredo to get his face on the screen so he can take a screenshot and show it to his mother.
There you go. Do it quick. I think that's a great question. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, this is what type of company can benefit from digital marketing. Almost, you might expect us to say any company, because we're a digital marketing agency and we'd love for them all to do it. But yeah, virtually any company these days, online, it would be foolish to say that everything happens online. It's not true. I mean, there's still many other venues of marketing that can be effective, and that's why we still see TV and radio ads. We still see ads in newspapers. We still see billboards. There's tons of ways to get people to know your brand and make them more aware of it. But digital is, more and more people are online every passing day, and more people turn to the internet when they're they're thinking about buying something. They're doing research for it, want to know more about the topic. So it's hard for me to think of any business that can totally ignore it these days. Would you agree, Eric?
Yeah, no, I do. And by the way, there are some incremental questions on HTTPS, which we'll get back to in a second, folks. Your questions weren't in there when we took on the content marketing question. And I'm actually going to be speaking about that at the ClickZ Live conference here in San Francisco in, let's see, about 2 hours. So if you're in San Francisco, come on down and check that out. And I know one of the questions that we're going to talk about, because it's actually a discussion panel, is, what do you do if it's too much, if you have trouble coming up with ideas or you're not really quite sure how to get started. And it can be very challenging, but you need to remember the examples of companies like Red Bull, right, which does some great things. The video that they did of Felix Baumgartner's jump from outer space, where he was basically at the edge, the outer edge of the atmosphere and jumped down and survived, got, if I remember right, over 65 million views, right? And Red Bull was not featured at all in this video, right? It was just they promoted this event, they funded it, they did everything to make it happen. But what happens with Red Bull's campaigns, and that's just an example of many of them. There's Nick Ladenda's Walk Over Niagara Falls. They have Red Bull magazine, a whole variety of different kinds of things. But what Red Bull does is they're not marketing their product. They're marketing how you feel after you've consumed your product. And it's a brilliant campaign because it creates a connection between them and their prospective customers that really causes those people to want to be closer to you, to your brand. And so when you have those kinds of companies where it's very difficult to create those connections, with people, you have to kind of broaden your message a little bit. Another example is Seventh Generation, which is a lot smaller brand than Red Bull. They produce household goods like cleaners, household cleaners, window cleaners, diapers, things like that. And yet they have a very effective content marketing campaign. Their Facebook page, for example, has more than 1 million followers. And what it does for them, though, is they've positioned themselves as a health and wellness brand that happens to sell these kinds of consumer products. And again, what they've done is they've created a strong connection between themselves and their prospective customers. Those customers are attaching to their health and wellness messages, and as a result, some of these prospects are becoming customers.
Those examples are so important, Eric, because they're really content marketing, and what content marketing is about is producing this, helping to produce authority, trust, all these words we always talk about around your brand, helping people to get to know what you're about, to have a certain feeling about your brand. Those are things that it's a lot easier to do on the digital aspect because the cost of producing a television ad or a television program or a traditional media, radio broadcast and things like that, is the cost and the technical expertise is prohibitive. But on the internet, virtually anybody can be a publisher. Anybody can be a media company these days. And that's not to say it doesn't take some expertise to do something at the level of what Red Bull did. Obviously, still takes a lot of expense and expertise. But you don't have to get somebody to jump out of a spaceship to do this kind of thing. Let's take it down just for a moment before we go back to the HTTPS questions. And so, what about the very, very small local business? There again, having that digital presence, even if you can't do things at the level that you just heard about, knowing how to connect up your site correctly online, having a good site, identifying that to Google and other search engines locally, making sure that your name, address, and phone number are listed correctly in directories, that Google knows them, Google Plus, local page, all of these things, so that when people go to find you or find your type of business in their area, even if you don't consider, we're not an online business, but that's where they may go to look for you. And so these things do become important.
Yeah, no, totally. It can be very challenging for those smaller businesses, but I think another perspective to add to that, Mark, is that you don't necessarily have to post every day, right? Mm-hmm. You can think about, your marketplace. Let's say your market is maybe just a few counties, and you offer a certain kind of service, plumbing, or you have a law firm or something, right? What you really want to do is create the strongest presence in your market. And that means that you don't necessarily have to be posting every single day, some brilliant article or something like that. You can scale what you're doing to your market situation. Now, mind you, there's some art and science both to figuring out what the right scale is and what you can afford to do with the time that you have available, right? So that's all fair to say that. But you don't have to put out as much content as a Red Bull if you're a smaller company. Your challenge is also somewhat small.
Great, good words, very wise words, Eric. Ready to go back to some other things, especially with the.
Well, yeah, we did get, and by the way, people, we have to apologize. There is some latency with which the questions come in. So that's why you get a little bit of disjointedness here. We're going to jump back to the HTTPS questions to make sure we finish answering those. So here's one. Layla wants to know if there's something a non-techie person can do.
Right. Implementing the HTTPS security is something a non-techie person can do. You're going to have to hire somebody to do it.
Yeah, I believe so. I certainly know that I don't know how to go do it. I have a technical background, so I might be able to figure it out, but to be honest with you, I don't know the steps off the top of my head. And
I was going to say, if you want to take the dive, there are guides. Google has put up some help pages about it. We have, just a little shameless plug here, John Biondo, one of our senior consultants, and a guy who just is a tremendous expert in the technical aspects of SEO and the web, published a blog post, the latest blog post, if you go to stonetempleconsulting.com and go to the blog, where he answers some questions about it, but he also links to those resources Google has and the resources others have that will give you some. There you go. There's the blog post right there. And he has, at the bottom, there's resources, there's links to all the Google guides, some videos. So if it's something that you want to try to tackle on your own, there are the resources to do it. It is a little technical, but it's not a huge process in most cases for most sites. So, it wouldn't be, if you wanted to hire somebody that feels a little bit more secure about doing that, it probably wouldn't be a real expensive venture. And we should probably say too, again, that it's more of a priority, and not for the Google ranking, but just for your users, for everything, much more of a priority right now if you are an e-commerce site or you do any kind of business. But as some other people have been pointing out in the comments for the show here, there are good reasons for every site to be secure like this. For example, many people may not be aware, if you use WordPress, and somebody commented, if you are on somebody else's Wi-Fi and you log into your admin account and you're not secure, you've just potentially exposed your admin credentials to anybody who's on that same Wi-Fi. So there are reasons to do this, even if you're not a site. But from the ranking standpoint, again, that's very tiny right now. I wouldn't rush off like this. Oh my gosh, this is the next SEO thing I have to do. But it's something every site owner should be thinking about at some point.
Totally. Okay. Do we have more HTTPS questions in the stream?
I don't think specifically on that. We do have some other questions. There are people. People might want to scan through the comments at the event page for this Hangout, because some of our participants have posted some very helpful links and other advice about this topic. So I'll leave it to folks to scan that on their own. Ready for some other questions?
Yes, I am. There's one actually. Again, I can't post them live for some reason, but there's from Wolfgang Anton.
Yeah,
I apologize. I'm going to blow your last name here, Wolfgang. Jags. It's something like that, or probably nothing at all like that.
Well, I had it, and now it's not. Now it's not working for me. It popped up for a moment, and then it went. You're not seeing it, right?
No, I'm not. But right. Anyway, I'll read the question then, folks. And sorry, the comment tracker is not working well here today. Do you think Google will ever drop links? And then he says, I think not, because semantic relationships need strong topical links. I think they will never drop links completely because of semantic meaning. And I agree with that, Wolfgang. From my perspective, back to Dustin Stout's question about how many social signal or SEOs, I forget it. Social signals does it take to screw in a light bulb? I forgot the question. But people talk all the time about social signals and other signals replacing links, and it just really isn't going to happen. The reality is that links are still the best signal that we have available to us. That is not going to change anytime soon. Other signals are coming in, and as they come in, the piece of the pie that the links occupy will shrink somewhat, right? So, but they're not going to go away. Let me just talk a little bit about why. let's just, for sake of argument, compare signals based on things you do with your site versus social signals versus link signals. All right, and we're going to establish a few metrics here. One is how much work is it to implement, right? How much of a commitment is it by you to implement it? And then, how trustworthy is the source? All right, so for stuff you do on your own site, probably not a ton of work for you to do it. It is a bit of commitment because you're putting it out in public for the whole world to see. But on the other hand, you're doing it for yourself. So it's really information that you're sharing yourself about what you're trying to get across. So that doesn't mean that that's bad information, but Google can't treat it like an endorsement. And Google uses on-page information to help establish relevance of a page, but they don't really do it so much for establishing the weight of a page or the authority of a page. Okay, social signals, next. Well, social signals take very little effort to implement, and it's actually very little commitment, because if I put a tweet out there and I want to tweet to something from somebody else that I just kind of want to give a little props to, it's gone in a few minutes from people's tweet stream. So it's actually very little of my skin to make that commitment, even when I tweet to someone else or Google Plus something somewhere else. And by the way, we're leaving Google Plus personalization out of this conversation for the moment. That's a very strong impact, that's acknowledged. But for those social signals, very little commitment, very little effort. And if you're doing it for someone else, then in theory it could be an endorsement, but it's a weak endorsement. Now let's look at a link. You need to own a website to implement one. Okay, that's already a bigger commitment. And of course you have to do some level of coding or use a tool like WordPress to implement it. So you have to publish some content to implement it in. And then it's static. It stays there. Or even for the blog post where it goes in the archives, it still goes on a static page. People can keep finding it. So it's more effort and more commitment. And if I'm linking to someone else's site, there's better, it's not like I'm voting for myself if I'm linking to someone else's site. I drew all this out for you because what I'm trying to help people understand is that links are going to be a stronger signal than those other things in terms of being third-party endorsements for your content. Okay, hopefully that was useful because I talked for a long time.
Yep,
Mark?
I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to call that a good answer to that question. Maybe I'll jump ahead here. I got a lot of questions I'm piling up, which is great. But I'm going to jump ahead here to one from Gina Fidel that's just threw up because I think it sort of relates to two things we talked about: the social signals you just talked about and the HTTPS. Her basic question is a concern. I saw Mark Vang, I believe it was, posting about this, that if you convert a site over to HTTPS, that you'll lose your not social signals, but the counts basically from your various things that you go back to zero. And she's asking, has anybody confirmed that? I don't think either of us have confirmed that. I know that's a concern people have expressed out there and something we might want to follow up about.
I think it's, I haven't confirmed it either, first of all. But unfortunately, and it's a fantastic question actually, unfortunately I think you probably do. And the reason is it's physically a different URL. And the social sites are going to attach to a specific URL. There's nothing that says that you have to have the same content. If I'm not mistaken, Denver Prophet Jr. might be able to correct me here, but or David Harry, either of those guys, nothing that says you couldn't have a different piece of content on the HTTPS version of your URL and the HTTP version of your URL. So guys, if you have some comments on that, would love to get any clarification whether the statement I just made is correct. But assuming it is, then I would assume that you would lose those social counts. And
yeah,
that would much stink, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, here's another one, a little bit different from Michael Van Ketz. Why do I know we're going to love to answer this one, Eric. Why do people keep pretending that content marketing is a good SEO tactic, as there are plenty of ways to get more and better links faster and cheaper? Why bother all that content marketing effort when we all know you can get links faster and cheaper, right?
Uh, yeah, it's a very yes, there are ways to get links faster and cheaper. Now let's ask the question whether those links will help you from an SEO perspective, and divide that answer into short-term and long-term. They're very risky ways to get links. The best links are ones that are genuine endorsements for your content, which implies that the person who is giving you the link believes in sharing that what you have posted is something really good to share. In fact, it's so good that they're willing to put a link on their site and have somebody click on it and leave their site, and yet they believe that that enhances their relationship with their visitors. That's a pretty strong statement to say that I endorse something well enough that I'm willing to have them leave my website experience. The authority of the people doing that matters. If you're doing things to auto-generate links or inject links or place links, then those things aren't going to help you. Now, I'd be very interested to hear whether or not, what specific ideas Michael had as to how he was getting links, but I'd be very careful about those volume approaches to getting links.
Or
from my perspective.
He's responding immediately, saying, no, I did include the word better links. He thinks you can get better links than through content marketing.
Okay, well, Michael, I'd love to get some specific examples so that we can address those and be a bit more in context.
Right. Exactly how are you getting these links, Michael? That's what we need to know to make an evaluation here. But you need to be. I think what Eric is expressing is, not only is it possible to get better, higher quality links through your content, through your reputation, things like that. But Google's more and more putting teeth behind that. To go to the negative side, Google's getting better at evaluating the quality of links and the type of links that you're getting and where they're coming from and whether they look like they've been manipulated in any way. So you want to be careful about that. And as Eric wrote an article a couple weeks ago, the Google Penguin algorithm update, that is the most visible and forward expression of Google going after sites that appear to be manipulating links, external links in any way, that's become really nasty. If you get hit by that, you take a chance out there, you get hit by that, it can be a long road to recovering your position, and longer. It gets longer all the time. So you want to evaluate that very carefully, what you're doing. So yeah, we need more context for what you're talking about getting those, how you're getting those links.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll be able to take that on a little further, Michael, when you get there. So Lisa Simpson had the question here about what about the reposting of previously posted content? And this is actually Whiteboard Friday was out. That went live last Friday at 2:30 Eastern Time. So syndicated content in moderation, first of all, and, in my opinion, focused on syndicating to higher authority sites because you want to accumulate authority from them is a very good way to go, in my opinion. But again, in moderation. You don't want to do a ton of this. It shouldn't be the primary way that you're out there trying to build links or establish your authority. It should be a good supplemental way of going about it. And the video I did on Whiteboard Friday, hopefully someone will share it in the event comments. Excuse me. It kind of goes into this. It's about a 4-minute video and outlines how you can do that safely, or at least relatively safely. So Lisa, I think it can be a part of your campaign, but it really does need to be just a part. I do want to call out a different variation of this, which can work, and it's on the edge of something that people find controversial because of past Google statements about it. Widget campaigns is something that Google at one point came out and said that they wanted you to follow all those links. If you've watched the language on the Google Webmaster Guidelines that they published over time, those guidelines have actually moderated somewhat, and they're no longer as strictly worded as it was before. And I think if you produce a very high quality widget, very relevant to your goal, and you don't load it with anchor text, that might work for you. And I'm emphasizing the word might because I know people are doing this successfully. We don't know if and when Google will change their policies and take action on it. But it is an example of a more mass market syndication tactic, larger scale syndication tactic. I would use it with care, and I certainly wouldn't make it the primary link building strategy that you're proposing. Yeah, okay, so David Harry. Eric, we no longer build links, we attract them. Yes, thank you for the course correction. So, and first of all, I totally agree with what David is saying. We definitely attract links. We try to do things to be link worthy. But the widget thing might be an okay tactic, and I'm not gonna say might again because I've said it enough times already.
All right. Yeah,
so
David
yeah,
Harris,
on the
widget
whole
game,
thing,
it's the same advice for infographics. Brand and company anchors aren't a huge issue if you have commercial targeted anchors. Probably not good.
Right. Yeah, totally. And on the whole topic of building links versus attracting them, it's a really good point. Dwayne Forrester had an article that he wrote a while back, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but what it came down to is when you get a new link to your website, it should be a surprise to you. I think that Dwayne's statement is just a little bit strong. For example, if I do a marketing promotion and I have created a great piece of content and I reach out to an editor at another blog or an author at another blog or just someone I know, and I'm tell them about the post, and some of those people are going to write me back and say, oh yeah, hey, I'm going to write about this tomorrow, and they'll tell me about it. It's not going to be a surprise to me that I got that link, right? However, I think that still falls under the heading of attracting links. I didn't make that person write about it. They really wrote about it only because, well, A, they liked it, and B, hopefully they like me and the stuff that I do, right? So that fits under the heading of attracting links when you do that kind of stuff the right way.
Great. All right, ready to clear out some more questions? We're going to be jumping all over the place here because that's the nature of this show. It's an open forum Q&A, and people are going all over the place. But got some going back even before the show that we haven't gotten to yet, so we should probably cover those.
Okay.
And David Harry just surprised us with a link. He linked to our the homepage of our site. He says, "Joy, it's on me." Oh my goodness, how did we get that link?
Yeah, thank you.
We must be doing really good content here that David Harry would link to us. All right, going back, Denver Prophet Jr. Before the show brought up something that we had been discussing with him because he actually found this. He alerted us to it. It's always interesting to see the different experiments that Google is doing with how it displays search results. And we see new things all the time, especially if your site is providing useful data and information, if your site is well structured with that data. And that doesn't just mean schema markup, but just that you've well constructed it well. And we got a little kind of shout out from Google. Here, I'll show it here on the, let me pull that, okay, make sure I got that window up first. Yep, I'm going to pull it on the screen share here. And I think that should be the one. Okay, you should be seeing some search results now. Is that right? Is that what you're seeing, Eric, on my screen?
I am, yes.
Okay. If you look at the top there, and I know it's a little tiny, but you can see this is a search on Google I did just before the show for DME show, which is our hashtag for this. You don't even need to include the hashtag. Or even if you search for digital marketing excellence show, this comes up as the #1 result. And if you look closely at that top result, you'll see underneath the usual stuff you would see, you'll see a couple lines of a table. This is a table that's on our page for the Digital Marketing Excellence Show that displays the episodes of the show that we've had. Gives the titles, the dates, and a link to the show. And Google is showing a little bit of that table right in the search results. And then there's a little legend right above it that says, 40 plus more results. Now, you can't click on any of that. You can click on the overall search result. It's going to take you to that page. But why is Google showing that? Well, they're showing the user that there is useful data on this page of the query. You're searching for a show, and they're showing the search result, the user on Google, that not only does this link to the show, but that there's a listing of the show episodes there. Now, what I emphasize here is that we didn't do anything special to get this. We didn't do any kind of, cool markup or special coding. We just constructed, give props here to Carter Elkin Paris, who's on vacation, so he won't hear this. Did a nicely constructed table. Google was able to pick that up, that's relevant information, and display it in the search results. So I guess all that to say about this is not the kind of thing that you optimize for, other than a goal that should be a goal anyway for the users that visit your site. That is to have a very well-constructed site, well-constructed pages that make sense, that are logical, that have the good and relevant information. And sometimes when you do that, Google will pick up on it and give you a little reward like this.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is it's not really about schema, right? Schema, I think, can be leveraged here to make this more likely to happen. But there is a lesson here, is that Google's looking for this data, this kind of data, whether you give them the help that you have tools to do or not. That when they put a tool out like that, it says that they're looking for that information. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And I'm just going to give another example. Rel Author. Google gave us this tool to help them discover authorship information. Well, as soon as you see them give the tool like that, you know they're looking for it whether you use the tool or not. I'm not saying you shouldn't use the tool that's provided. You should, if you have the capability to do that. So you should use Rel Author tags if you're interested in authorship. And you should also, in a situation like this, think about using schema on that page, which is something that we're looking into. But right now, Google found the information in the absence of schema, which was a very interesting thing to see that they were able to do.
Yeah, kind of cool. All right, here's another question from earlier on in the show from Carrie Green. What do you guys think of the silo method of creating a website structure? I see the structural logic of it for deep linking, etc., but I'm always a skeptic on those special ways to do things. I'm also curious how it impacts user experience. Eric, first of all, what does Carrie mean by the silo method of creating website structure?
Yeah, so basically, if you think of your site as having different themes that it addresses, let me make up an example that I could with the Stone Temple Consulting site. You could imagine a content marketing theme. You could imagine a social media theme. You could imagine an on-page SEO theme. And then the theory would be that all the SEO-related content goes in an SEO subfolder, and is all kind of interlinked over here. And then the social media content is in a different silo, different folder, all interlinked over here. And then the same for your content marketing stuff, with a limited number of cross-linking things. Like maybe the content marketing stuff only has a link to the top of the social media and SEO silos, but links to all the individual elements much more integrated way. What you're doing is you're creating a semantically richer sub-navigation path, if you will. So And there's an argument for that, and I think it's something that does potentially help search engines better understand and value, that segment of your content, and they can certainly see what when you get links to your site, if a bunch of it goes to the content marketing stuff, but not so much to the SEO stuff, that they can get better signals as to what you're really expert at. I don't think this is a magic bullet, but it is a useful idea.
So Carrie asks then, she's concerned about, or he, I'm sorry Carrie. Carrie is concerned about the impact on the user's experience. Do you think there's any real impact there for the user?
I would argue it's potentially a positive impact. I mean, if they're into content marketing stuff and not so interested in on-page SEO, then a traditional blog where all that stuff is interleaved all the time, isn't as good an experience. Of course, a traditional blog probably has a category folder, and you can just go to that. But when I think of a silo type discussion, I think we're talking about a site other than a blog. So, great place for this e-commerce site, right? If you're selling all kinds of products, your automotive parts probably should be in one tree, and that's a better experience for them, separated from your kitchen stuff, separate from your living room furniture stuff, and your outdoor, lawn care stuff, all kind of kept in one singular place. I would argue that that's an improved experience.
Okay, very good. Just dropping back for a moment to the topic before this one, Michael Merritt saying he doesn't see it. I think he's referring to the search result we just showed with the part of the table showing the result, and he's asking if it's a personalized result of some sort. Michael, no, I searched for it in non-logged in search and saw it as well. Note that two things. One, the queries that we saw it for were DME show as one word, and digital marketing excellence show. Now, even having said that, you can never guarantee that Google's going to show a specific kind of result or specific search feature to every user in every situation, even for the same query, even logged out. So, it's possible. Just first of all, make sure that you're doing one of those queries, but even there, it's possible for whatever reason you're not being shown that. Also, be curious about where you're located. If you're in the U.S., that could be a factor as well.
Well, I can add to that, Mark. I just tried it. I'm not getting it either logged in or incognito.
Oh, interesting. See, this is the danger of mentioning anything in public, because as soon as you do, Matt cuts his listening and he removes it. Yeah, that's very interesting, because the search I was showing you I did just before the show. So that's curious. Anyway.
Well, the reason why they removed it is they know that we're currently in the DMA show, as opposed to the DME show. So,
yeah, so it's not relevant right now.
Right.
Oh man, it's always Well, that's just the volatile nature. It's a great thing of pointing out how volatile the nature of Google search results are and how they're shifting things, experimenting all the time. There is no such thing as Google for everyone anymore. And that's a great example of it. Everybody's results are at least slightly different and often very radically different.
Yeah, totally. So there's another question from Peter Hathley here, back to content marketing. So human-to-human content marketing is not important, he asks. Mm-hmm. Peter, there's a couple different ways I can interpret that question, so I'm going to take my best cut at it. To me, I think the human-to-human connection is an incredible part of content marketing, because people are more likely to share something from someone they trust. To me, I think that's sort of at the core of all this. You're not going to get anywhere without that human-to-human communication component. And it isn't, we talk about the influencers all the time and how important they are, and they are important, but they're actually not more important than the rest of the audience. And you need a balance of those things, and you need to be active in sharing with other people and interacting with other people along the way.
Well said, and maybe related to that, NWBD, this is a brand page, is asking, what would you say is a good starting point for blog content? And I'll take that on first, and then see what you have to add, Eric. But you know, that we could do a whole show about that. In fact, we have done whole shows about that. And this gives me a chance to plug my Whiteboard Friday from last Friday for Moz. If you go there, both if people don't know, both Eric, Enge, and I got Whiteboard Friday videos published by Moz last Friday, a dual show for Stone Temple. But mine was about finding content ideas. But more to the point here, we were saying, where do you start? I think this is very apropos to our earlier discussion about earning links versus trying to create them or trying to artificially stimulate them, because it's in the same mindset. It's more these days, content used to be in the SEO world just about, it was a container for keywords. It was just to get keywords on the page so that Google would index you for those keywords, and hopefully, you'd rank and they'd match up with that. Now the real play for content is much more about the user, which is the way it should be. You want to think about your content not just as an SEO attractor, but primarily as an attractor to the kind of readers or visitors or customers that you want to have. And it's got to be useful to them. So you're thinking in terms of, I always go back to the very simple example of Marcus Sheridan, the sales lion whose pool company in Washington, D.C. was going bankrupt a few years ago during the recession. He was desperate, and he just began to think about, he put together a list with his salespeople of over 700 questions that they knew that people had asked them on sales calls over the years. And they just began to write blog posts answering those questions. And Google began to pick up on that. They were well optimized for what people were searching for. People began to see Riverside Pools, their company, as where they would get their answers. And they began to think of Riverside Pools as being like, well, especially in a recession, if I'm going to sink money into a pool, that's going to be literally sinking money into a hole in the ground in my backyard. I want to make sure I'm going with people who really know what they're doing and can answer my questions. And the content on Riverside Pools was showing that. And long story short, turned around and they end up making more money during a recession than they were making before from their old methods. So that there's a lot more I could say there, but the main point is, think about your content from the standpoint of what do people who are in your market need to know? What are their hopes, their fears, their questions, their doubts? And be creating content that shows that you know that stuff and you're the source for that. Eric, what would you add to that?
No, I think it's a great answer to the question right there. And it really harkens back to what I talked about with Red Bull and Seventh Generation, which were different kinds of situations, but still targeted towards how do you create that connection with the audience. In the case of Marcus Sheridan, really great connections created around just solving certain kinds of problems for people. I know that's certainly what we try to do here at Stone Temple Consulting with our content marketing, which is the sole way that we market our business. As we've said many times live on air, we have no sales force here. You have to contact us if you want to become a customer. And the contact info. Oh no, just kidding. So
follow the link that David Harry gave you earlier.
Yeah, exactly. You'll find it. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. But in any case, I want to actually pull something up from Dustin Stout here. I won't read the whole comment, but halfway through it, marketing is as much about psychology, human behavior knowledge, as it is about technical knowledge. And I want to draw that one out a little bit because, as you know, Mark, we've had some discussions about this. When you and I talk about it, I always like to talk about things like what's the headline? Why is it going to grab somebody's attention? What's the first image look like? And what's the first paragraph say? And how are those going to create an emotional desire based on the person who sees them to read the article, to go in and dive in and get into more depth, right? You're looking for ways to create an emotional reaction or connection which compels them to participate in your content. And I chose the word participate deliberately because they can just pass it by. They've got a stream of things going by them that they can choose to dive into. Why are they going to choose yours? And I think understanding how to create those connections is really incredibly important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well said. We're coming down the last 9 minutes here, so I'm going to move through some questions if I may. So I'm going back a bit. Brian Hayes earlier asked about at what point does keeping up with every little update that's suggested become counterproductive? And he says, like, I have 8 websites, changing each one to HTTPS seems daunting. It goes on, and Comment Tracker cuts it off. But basically, yeah, I think we feel the pain. You know, you keep hearing these things. You know, Google keeps changing things. You should do this. You should do that. You know, Eric, how do you advise, especially smaller sites, smaller businesses? You know, at what point? How much of that do you do? How much do you pay attention to that?
It's really hard when you have a smaller business. I mean, a lot of times you're lucky if you invest an hour a week in digital marketing as a smaller business. Obviously, it's great if you can do a little more, and I know some small businesses that have knocked it out of the park by focusing a lot of energy on digital marketing type activities. I'm being even broader than SEO at the moment. But when you bring that down to the SEO side of things and tracking Google algorithms, to me, I think you've got to learn to keep it simple and use your very limited time in a very effective way. You know, monitor your organic search traffic and understand whether it's going up or down. You know, I would do that. I would learn to be smart enough or get help to be smart enough to make sure that your site is being well crawled and indexed. It's very easy to check how many pages Google thinks it has indexed for you by setting up a Webmaster Tools account. And if you don't want to do that, you can try the index : and then insert your domain name, comment your domain name after the site colon. I said index : I meant site : and that will return how many pages you have. But not quite as accurate as going to Webmaster Tools. And just see whether that number is right. And then just try to apply some of the things we've talked about here in very basic ways of titling and setting up pages to get people interested in them. You know, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to have time to do. You're not going to have time to read about every Google update. I just think it gets counterproductive very fast for a small business.
And I just posted into the comments on the event page a link to an article that you wrote for Plus Your Business a little while ago, Eric, called Your First 9 SEO Tasks. So there's a good reference point. You know, if you want to know some of the basics that you should do, you're worried I can't do everything. You know, there's some things that you can at least do to get yourself on a better footing.
Okay, so we have a cheeky question from David Harry here. I'm going to summarize it because it's fairly long and includes a couple of links. What he does is he links from Matt Cutt's Penguin 2.0 post to a Matt Cutt's post another Google post on Blogspot about another step to reward high quality. And it's interesting that it's in the Penguin 2.0 post, because this post about how to reward high quality doesn't really talk about links. It talks about other kinds of things in terms of an important change in their algorithm to fight web spam and decreasing rankings for sites that they believe are violating Google's guidelines. Much broader in this post than the notion of links. I don't know, David. Smokescreen comes to mind. I think I'm not seeing the tie. To me, I'm still thinking that Penguin is just about links. I've heard other people suggest it's more than that, but at least from my experience, with it. It seems to be link-centric. Would love to get your thoughts in the comments what you're seeing, because I know you dig into a lot of this stuff too.
Okay, Zach Nicola wants to know about not provided keywords, and how do we, he's talking to us, Stone Temple, handle that? How do we get around that? Now that Google is providing less and less keywords in analytics, and have we moved on from that in our reports to clients? That's still something important. Do we have other ways of evaluating or finding what keywords people are finding us on Google with?
So there are two things that we do at Stone Temple these days. Well, first of all, you should track top-level organic search traffic for sure, but digging down a little bit deeper than that, we look at landing pages for organic search traffic, and you can get a sense as to what keyword space you're being successful in. That's useful. You can look at rankings. I hate saying that because I used to tell people that it was a waste of time, but then we lost our keyword data. So it becomes useful again to look at rankings. And just know that what you're seeing for rankings with whatever tool you're doing to pull that for you might not be someone else's experience. And the third thing is, if you really determine your keyword data, you can actually still get some of it, and I think you should leverage what you can get. There's a few different sources you can get. Webmaster Tools from Google gives you some data, moderate quality, admittedly. You can also look to the degree that it's significant at what Bing still gives you. You still can get a little bit of data in Google Analytics, and you can use those as directional indicators, if you will, of keyword data, and that's very useful. And if you're trying to find out what converts for you from a keyword perspective, you can certainly use paid search. That's a whole potpourri of different things that you can try, Zach, and depending on your situation, you might be into trying them all.
All right, we're at 2 minutes here, so lightning round. David Kism wanted to know, are landing pages still going to work as we move forward and web users get more savvy? Curious to know your thoughts. Landing pages seem so impersonal. Well, first of all, I'm going to say, like, you are always going to have landing pages because landing pages are just where a link lands. So it seems like the question here really is, how can you make better landing pages that are better for the user?
Yeah, and I think if I'm reading into the question, it sounds like the real question is, are designed for conversion landing pages a problem in your overall strategy? Certainly not if you're doing paid search, right? I think it's a brilliant thing to do in paid search, to have something that's tweaked for conversion, because people are going to be coming in after clicking on an ad. Most of those people know that it's an ad, and they chose to click an ad because they want to take action now. You want to give it to them and not put obstacles in their way, and that's what makes a good quality page in that case. Arguably, by the way, if someone comes to your site on a high commercial intent keyword, again, we know we might not have that data, you could make the same argument. But I do think that on-page or landing page optimization, but with broader perspectives and goals, is a big deal. I think I could relate that to semantic search this way, in that, and I'll give an example. If you have a page about women's shoes, and that page has, you said this was lightning round. Sorry, I blew it.
Slow lightning.
Yeah, you have a page about women's shoes, and you have information about shoe sizes and colors and different brands, but you don't have information about shipping, a checkout link, a contact us link, a privacy link. Then you're not offering a complete experience. So that's a kind of landing page design that people need to learn that we don't generally appreciate fully in the market just yet. And I think we've hit the wire here, Mark.
Yep, we have.
Do you have
I know
one
you've
last
got to,
question you want to shove in there?
well, I
Or?
know that you've got to get to that conference downstairs, which will probably involve you jumping off that balcony with a Red Bull space parachute to get down there in time. But let's see if you can do this one really quick. Trevor Stewart wanted to know what would you use as a preferred tool for link analysis? Link analysis, that's a big topic. There's a lot of tools and a lot of different kinds of link analysis, but want to give a tool or two for link analysis?
Well, the main tools out there, Open Site Explorer, Majestic SEO, Ahrefs, link research tools. Those are the main tools. At Stone Temple Consulting, we have our own in-house tool that we don't sell to the general public, called Backlink Profiler, that actually pulls in the data from all those tools and dedupes it, and then applies a common set of metrics to all of them, and that's what we use for backlink analysis. But of those tools, if you're really looking for the most important links to a site, I'd probably go with Open Site Explorer, because people are comfortable with domain authority and page authority as metrics. If you're looking for volumes of links, then you got to go with Majestic or Ahrefs.
All right, well said. We're at the end here. Before we do end, I want to let people know that Eric and I were talking some about the structure of the show over the weekend, and one of the things that we decided is that this is something that we'd try out again, and it went well, that it's something we'd probably do every month, do once a month, an open forum like this. And I would say it went very well. We were worried at the beginning would we get enough questions, and we had more than enough to fill up our hours. So it seems like a popular thing to do. Want to keep doing it, Eric?
I think we can do this format once a month, is what I'd say. What do you think?
Yep, that's where I want to go. So look forward to this again, next month, and we're going to be structuring the show, the DMA show, for the future here a little bit more. With like each week of the month, there'll be kind of a general topic that it's going to be about, and we'll get that out to you. You'll know what those are. But this is one that will be a keeper. We'll be doing these open forums on a monthly basis.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. That's it for the Digital Marketing Answers show for today. Make it a great day.
That's right. And we'll see you next week.